Comm 101, quick tip number three. So, we're talking about the different ways you could put a speech order together, right? And we had Bonnaroo for the first two examples, chronological and spatial. Now we're going to look at causal, or the cause and effect relationship that can happen within a speech. And causal can be very effective. There's a couple of topics where this one's a really good one to talk about. If you are trying to explain how something happened, instead of going chronological, causal could work really well, right? So you're showing this cause, and here's the effects of this particular cause. And one really interesting way to do this, and I use it as an example, but I actually have had a student or two use similar type examples um, several years ago, probably 8, 9 years ago. My wife came down with shingles, and I don't know if you're very familiar with shingles, but it's this it's like a rash on your skin. It's extremely painful. It lasts for a really long time. It has these dark splotches. It was really bad when she was going through it, and she was telling me, "Oh God, I hope you don't get it. It's awful, blah 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 blah." And I could remember 20, 25 years ago, my dad went through the same problem with shingles. And he could relate to how bad it was. And he had actually had shingles twice. And he and my wife got in a conversation when she had shingles. And I got into doing a little bit of research about it. And I found out that I can't get shingles. And that caused me to start thinking about shingles as a topic because, I'm a speech geek. And here is a perfect example of a causal order type speech because shingles would be the effect. And what causes shingles is chickenpox. So you can have the cause, chickenpox, and you can have the effect down the road. You have chickenpox, and of course, you've got the little pock marks on you when you're a kid. Usually it's kids that get chickenpox, and you have the pock marks all over you, and then you get over it and it goes away, or so you think, for the rest of your life. But what happens is much later down the road, when you're older, you can get shingles as a result of having had chicken pox. And my dad had had shingles, and my wife had chicken pox, and my wife had chicken pox when she was a kid. And my dad, when he was a kid, I never had chicken pox, ever. If you haven't had chicken pox, you cannot get shingles. That was kind of cool to know. So there's one explanation or one example of how you can use causal order to talk about effects. Because if you're a child and you don't get chickenpox, you don't have to worry about shingles because the cause of shingles is chickenpox. And you could go into much more detail. I don't remember off the top of my head much more detail about that. But here you've got a chance. I just told you a story about my wife having shingles and my dad having shingles and worked it into me, and I can't have them. And so it makes it a more interesting type of the story. And of course, I could have gotten into much more details and depth and that kind of thing and used sources and all. But the point is that here is an example that you can talk about a cause and an effect. And in this case, I talked about the effect first and then the cause. You could, of course, do it the other way as well. And it makes it a little bit more interesting. I can't get shingles. Can you get shingles? Do you know where shingles comes from? And then you go right into your speech. So it's another really interesting way that you can present a speech. And it doesn't have to be the typical way that most people think of right away. So there you go, causal order.